Day, folks. Here is another gem in our series of health and wellness nuggets, and the topic today will be the nutrient folic acid, and I'll dive into it straight away. Folic acid is classified as one of the B group of vitamins, including vitamin B12 and B2 and B6 and so on. And it has special role to play in especially in cleft palate conditions, and also in atherosclerosis, the blocked arteries. But I've spoken about that earlier when we discussed that. And today I'll concentrate on the history of folic acid discovery and its role. You get a condition on the 28th day of gestation, pregnancy. The baby or the fetus divides into a left and right half. Before that, it's just one unit, and at that moment of split, it happens on the 28th day after conception. The folic acid, there's an enzyme process that does the division, that's engaged in the division, and the folic acid is the coenzyme. In other words, that enzyme that does the split runs on folic acid. So if there's not enough, you might get a cleft, just a hair lip, it's called in layman's language. It's a cleft upper lip. The slightly worse degree of it is a cleft palate, when the palate of the baby is split, and it needs quite severe surgery to correct it. And the most extreme case of folic acid deficiency on the 28th day of pregnancy is spina bifida. The whole spine is malformed or not split correctly into left and right spheres, and that's quite common in some areas in the world where there are folic acid antagonists in agriculture. Maybe things like pesticides or fertilizers or whatever. It reduces the folic acid in the plants, and then the people who live there don't get enough. In the Western Cape of South Africa, near a town called Worcester, which is a wine growing area, it's quite prevalent with the workers, the farm laborers. So this whole issue was discovered long ago, about 100 years ago in France, by scientists. And since they are a bread-eating nation, if you see the stereotypes of a Frenchman with a big loaf of long bread under his arm, the government, they thought it wise to decree that the people who mill the flour should add a certain quantity of folic acid into the flour for the bread. And so the incidence of these types of cleft palate conditions were drastically reduced, but only in France. And what later emerged was that France and all those European countries, they have such a long history of animosity, and they've been at wars, and the boundaries have changed so many times in Poland and Germany and Austria, and England and France have been at war. It was a lot of politics involved. So the French never told their neighbors about it until about 1964, and then the other countries were astounded that France didn't share this wonderful information with them. And the one comment one of the academics in Paris made was, when asked why he didn't share this information, he said, "We've been at war with you bastards for centuries, why should we tell you anything?" So that's the type of sentiment you can get in science. Science is fraught with all. We'll get into that subject on that topic on another talk, as how science has been corrupted. But if you have a generous diet and you should get enough folic acid depending where your food was manufactured or grown or harvested. So for safety's sake, it would be wise for women contemplating having children to take folic acid before the 28th day after conception. After that, it's too late. So we have a fix for a very terrible problem. One of my cousins had a cleft palate, and it took many operations as a little child, surgical structural operations to her palate to stop her nasal speaking. And eventually she was okay, but she still held a scar in her upper lip from it, slightly disfigured. So there's a big problem if it happens. It's not a high incidence. The last time I looked, it's about 1 in 400, but it affects that person badly. And then, but you can get rid of it if you do the right thing. And you'll see in our talks now, by doing the right thing, you can avoid all these problems that the humans suffer from. So until next time, see you.